Come on, Jace. The week of novellas. It is Naughty or Nice, which I definitely thought was going to be an Omegaverse situation or a bondage situation, and it was neither. So I'm not sure why Naughty is spelled like this. Quite honestly, this novella is about Murray, who is a sex toy tester for a company, and she's never had an orgasm, so she doesn't actually test any of the sex toys because she doesn't believe in orgasms. She doesn't believe they're a thing. She gets a bad bonus evaluation because her reviews are lame because she doesn't know what anything feels like because she literally has never tried the products that she was supposed to review because she doesn't believe in orgasms. She doesn't believe they're real, which honestly was so valid. A woman believing that orgasms aren't real is totally believable to me. There's a whole side backstory of needing the money because her mother's a bingo addict and wanting to provide toys for her younger siblings. And she's gonna steal the toys that she didn't test and sell them on eBay because she didn't get her bonus because of her weird reviews. And then Nick, who is one of the sex toy company owner developers, finds her and is like, hey, I want you to test out my new toy. So they go into the testing room and he's in there and says, you have to use the toy. He's like, well, number one, you just faked an orgasm, and number two, you didn't turn it on, so I know that that wasn't real. And then has her use the toy, gives her an orgasm for the first time, and then they have sex. It's so not okay with HR. Nothing about this is okay with HR in any way, shape, or form. And then there's drama. He finds the toys she's trying to steal. He gets mad. She leaves. He realizes that she was telling the truth about certain things. It's a big HR violation, but it is a very quick holiday novella. I am sad that there is no bondage. I'm sad that there are no werewolves. I wish it was spelled differently, but I don't know if it just wouldn't be able to. This makes me want to read more of Ines Johnson. I can find her very easily from the library. I just don't love to read on Hoopla because I don't like reading on a glowing device. I'd rather read on an e-reader, more book-like feeling, but this might have changed my mind. If you are someone who loves a holiday novella and a spicy holiday novella, there's so much spice for so little pages. This one can top your list. It is quick, it is easy, and there's no real drama or real stakes. It's not like anyone's gonna die or they're gonna get evicted. Her younger siblings won't get presents, which sucks, but isn't a life or death situation. So if you're not looking for that emotional, oh no, what's gonna happen, this is a safe bet for you. God fucking damn it. I listened to Lights Out by Naves Allen. This book is inspired by something on TikTok that I didn't know was a thing. So thank you to all the people in my life who explained what this thing is, the masked thirst traps on TikTok. Thank you for explaining that. I had no idea what this was. So that was a learning curve already. This book is weirdly wholesome. It does not count as dark romance for me because there is no kidnapping of a main character to another main character. And I do mean that because Josh, our MMC, is actually at heart a really sweet, wonderful cinnamon roll who just cares about everyone and has some darker kinks. It's true. You have to get like halfway through the book and then it's true. Allie is a nurse and she follows the mask dudes on TikTok and sends a picture of her favorite mask dude to an old hookup saying, hey, you want to dress up as this guy? And it turns out her old hookup is the roommate to the actual mask dude. And then mask dude goes, wait, that girl that you used to hook up with that I have a crush on, she likes masks, but not only masks, she likes me. Because he's a hacker, he stalks all of her comments and goes, wow, look at all these things that she says she wants me to do to her. Maybe I should do them. Also, I kind of like that. That's my kink too. And then does it. So she says, I want you to break into my house and be sitting in my room with a knife. And he's like, okay, great. I'm going to do that. There is a lot of morally gray in this book. It's staunchly morally gray. Just hard morally gray. And that's fine. I love a morally gray. For me, morally gray means the relationship between whoever this story is about is strong, is good, is respectful, and everything else around them is an absolute train wreck. And that is the case in this. So they've got this really dark kink dynamic that they are getting to explore with each other. But Josh is the child of a serial killer, and he has been recognized for it. Apparently he looks like his dad. I don't know. Allie doesn't know. She's not a true crime fan. And so he's very isolated from the outside world anyway. He has a lot of trauma from the upbringing with his father. And then there's also Allie as a trauma nurse. She's an ER trauma nurse, and there's a side plot with a bad dude that shows up and then fixates on Allie, and y'all, it's hysterical. To me, it definitely gives Butcher and Blackbird vibes in terms of the banter, in terms of the fun. This audiobook was also duet style, and I loved it. I thought that Elena Wolf and Jacob Morgan did a phenomenal job with this audiobook, like truly phenomenal. Here's my one thing, not my one thing, but here's the thing. I have a physical copy of this book. I did not read it. I listened because I started listening, realized something, but also loved this audiobook so much that I just kept listening. I did not want to read it. I thought their performances were that good, y'all, that good. Their performances were so good that I did not want to read this book. Do you see all my pretty tabs? That's how many times forearms are mentioned in this book. I got the physical book because there was no way for me to bookmark every time forearms were mentioned. I needed to mark how many times forearms are mentioned for the podcast episode. All of these times, forearms are mentioned. I know is also part of that mask man dude thing that people really, really like. There are 9 tabs here for forearms. Just 9 tabs. I think on some pages they're mentioned more than once. So expect this book to come back in other things that I'm doing. But honestly, go listen to this audiobook. The performances were incredible, and I found it a lot of fun. Oh boy. This is my second Big Little romance. I don't count the Knotty list because it wasn't really Big Little. That was something else. And I'm just going to put it out there that I am not very well versed in this quink, so don't hold my opinions as fact. If this is a story that intrigues you, go do your research. I don't know yet how accurate to the kink this is. As accurate as any of these things in romance novels are to the kink they are trying to represent or portray. It is also a mafia story, so if that's not your deal, step away from this time. Amara has been raised by her uncle and raised to be an assassin. Her uncle says, "This is a bad guy. You're gonna kill him for me," and Amara does. Her most recent mark is a man, not in the organization, but also in the mafia world, that she's had a crush on most of her life. Her uncle says, "He's not a bad man. I just owe some woman a favor, and I'm so sorry, honey, but you're the one who's going to have to do it." That man is Emilio, and instead of killing her or turning her over to the police or her own uncle, he decides to capture her. She's got to stay with him until she's punished, because he is a daddy dom and also the big in the Big Little relationship. He holds her captive and forces her into this Big Little dynamic. That's the part for me that I get a little squishy about, because it's not like Amara asked for it. It's not like Amara knew this about herself. Great that it worked out in the end, but it feels very sketchy. Big Little dynamics are very unique. I will put a link to an episode of Princess Rara's podcast where she talks about Big Little dynamics, because I really have to suspend my disbelief. Even more than hockey, I have to suspend my disbelief with this kind of thing. Big Little in general, if you're a little at heart, there's this beautiful innocence and you get to be taken care of. And if you're a big, you get to take care of this person. You dote on them. You are kind. You support them. You provide for them. And you, depending on your relationship, can negotiate punishments if they don't follow the rules, but you also might not have punishments. You might only have rewards. Y'all, kink is customizable, and just because this is the way that it was written in this book does not mean it's the way that it is all over. So they're engaging in this Big Little dynamic, and Amara realizes she not only has a crush on him, but she likes this dynamic. They're getting along. She's harboring a lot of guilt because she tried to kill him, and she doesn't think she would ever be forgiven, even though she now wants him for real life. Emilio understands that she's clearly keeping something from him and wants to find out what it is. He wants to marry her real bad, real bad. He says, we're going to get married. He basically just calls a priest and says, we're going to get married. But along the way, reveals some truths about Amara's uncle that she has to reckon with. It is a very short novella. I can't give away any more of the plot, or I will give away the whole story, but just know that things go south as they do. As far as mafia stories, I found this one very palatable. It's very quick. Like I said, novella. As far as big little stories, I'm still so new. I'm still wrapping my head around that dynamic. I understand it a lot better after Smut Lovers, but I'm still new enough about the dynamic that there are things that I wish were explained more than they were shown. And that's on me. That's on me for not knowing much. But if that's a dynamic or a thing that you're looking for, congratulations. I found one for you. Go read it. This book felt long to me. Not in a bad way, but it felt longer than I expected. It is Ella Gets the D by Tanvier Peart. The story I really appreciated. I thought it was a great story that I wanted to read about. Ella discovers her husband is cheating on her and leaves him, takes the children, and is really fighting against this man who has tried to control her and manipulate her and use every tool at his disposal to make sure she can't leave him. He's screwing other people. Like, he doesn't really care. But he is determined to maintain control over Ella. When this story starts, she's living in this very nice suburb of DC, and she moves into a townhouse that her best friend says is in her family's business. She said it's not in her family's just giant portfolio. It's actually her younger brother's. Her younger brother who lives in London. Before they move in, Ella's staying at the townhouse as a test run, and who should walk in and go into the master bedroom and be very surprised by a woman in their bed, a very drunk little brother of the best friend, and they fool around. And it's so funny because she thinks he's a dream and he thinks she's someone he must have brought home from a bar and didn't realize, and they fool around and then go, oh my gosh, you're real, what is this? And it all comes out. Julian is the younger brother's name. Ella's kids call him Julie, which I think is adorable, and Julian lets Ella and her kids stay in his townhouse. He does live in London most of the time, but when he's in DC, he had a townhouse that he stayed in, and he lets them stay. He crashes basically in the basement whenever he's in town. In the rules of this story, while separated, any relationship you have with someone not your legal spouse can be considered an affair. And so while there is tons of chemistry between Ella and Julian, both emotional and sexual, Ella says, I can't jeopardize the success of my divorce by sleeping with you, by engaging in a relationship with you that could be used against me when I go through the divorce. I have to be separated for a year because it's uncontested. I can prove infidelity, but I can't be in a relationship with you during that year because then my husband could turn it around on me and claim infidelity, and I would get screwed. Ella has been a housewife. She gets a job, she gets her kids out, she does the commuting thing while working and taking her older son to school in a different city. She navigates all the gossip from the people in the town that she was living in as she embarks on this new adventure. Everyone thinks that she just left her husband and she's not going to tell them her dirty laundry, but no one can understand, why would you leave such a rich, powerful man? Blech, he's a creep. He deserves to be left. Because of the barriers they've set up in their relationship, they respect each other, they communicate well, and also they learn how to fool around without any penetration whatsoever. One of my favorite quotes from this book is, if there's one thing we've mastered, it's the art of dry humping. Oh my gosh, so freaking funny. Like I said, it feels like it takes a while, and it does, because this story takes place over more than a year. This year of discovering the affair, separating from her husband, and getting through the divorce. Her ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, also tries some shady stuff to get her to stay, screw her out of this divorce, or screw her out of the settlement that she deserves. I really enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun to read. The relationship was fun. It felt very adult in a way that Sometimes relationships don't. I'm not always a single mom person, but I thought this one did a really great job with it. And Julian just stands up. He's a great example of, even if it wasn't what you thought you wanted, when you find the person you want, you will accept what's going on in their life and you will change what you thought your life would be if they are worth it. Julian thought he'd be single. Julian did not expect to fall for a woman with kids. Not only is he now dating, he is stepdad, and that is unexpected to this young eligible bachelor, but Ella is worth it to him. And it's just one of those reminders that you are worth it and you deserve to wait for someone who sees how worth it you are. It was honestly a little strange to be reading the contract while at Smut Lovers, where during the day I was in panels about what is kink life in real life, how are these dynamics experienced, how are clubs and relationships and things of that nature playing out in the real world, and then reading this book, which is a fantastical version of that. I'm not saying it's a bad version of it, but I was reading it definitely with a more critical eye than I would have certainly before and maybe even after. Just when you're in the middle of that kind of critical work in the day, it's hard at night to be like, did they really negotiate the punishments in this relationship? Could we have seen more about the dominance personality and humanity? So it was just a very interesting moment for me to be reading this book. Maybe I should have put it down, but I didn't. I read it. In this book, we have Nadia, but she doesn't like Nadia, and Dalton, and they are high school sweethearts. Dalton's father is arrested and put in jail for fraud, financial fraud. I'm not 100% sure what kind of scheme he did, but it was a scheme and he went away. That lost Dalton his ability to go to college with Natty. They both had gotten into Harvard. He sends her off to fulfill the dream that she's always wanted, and he stays behind to rebuild his life. 15 years have passed, and Dalton has rebuilt himself under a different last name in the business world and businessy stuff. Natty has fulfilled her dream of becoming a lawyer, and specifically a corporate lawyer. She is headhunted to the law firm that Dalton's business is with, brought on to be the replacement for the current legal counsel that Dalton uses. And of course, the minute they see each other, all those big feelings come back, all the pining, all the longing, the realization that they haven't moved on in the last 15 years. They've just been waiting for the other person. In the time that they've been apart, both Dalton and Natty have realized that they are part of the BDSM world. Natty is a submissive, Dalton is a dominant. In flashback, we see that those aspects of their relationship were present in high school, but they were in high school. So no, thank you. Because being in a relationship with your legal counsel is completely unethical, they look to find ways around this to protect Natty's interests as a lawyer and also allow them both to be together and explore this new dynamic of dominant and submissive in the reality rather than just the light understanding of their relationship in high school. It is very heavy into the kink, into the quink of it. I don't know. Do I have to? I should. Rara says quink, so I should say quink of it. They negotiate their contracts, they explore their wants, their limits, all of those things. It does have a billionaire sex dungeon thingy bobber, which is apparently not real, which I was very sad to learn. It was very sad. I would love it if dungeons were big, fancy, beautiful places. Not that they aren't, but this had a bit of a Secretary feel to me, that movie with Maggie Gyllenhaal and James Spader, I think is his name, in that Dalton goes through something. His mother passes away from an illness. It's not unexpected. She was very, very sick. And he just goes into this terrible depression. And Natty waits for him. It just, grief is its own thing. But the way that Natty waits for him, I didn't love. It wasn't my favorite. They end up being blackmailed and other shenaniganry, which is honestly neither here nor there for me. It seems like this is the beginning of a series. I don't know who it's about next. I think I need to put this quink stuff on the back burner as I marinate on all the things that I learned. If you are not marinating or you know, taking to heart lectures about realism of kink and sex in romance novels, go read this book. They play. They play a lot. I read The Secret Life of a Lady by Darcy McGuire, and I was just in the mood for a historical romp. I'd been reading a lot of contemporary romance, and I wanted something that would take me out of what I'd been reading, and I got it. I found this one because it said it was spicy, and I'm always a little nervous with historical because sometimes they say spicy and it's, spicy for that time period and not for me. Hannah is essentially a spy for the queen. She is the companion to a duchess. You don't need to know how they're connected, and they both spy for Queen Victoria. They are on the hunt for the murderer of a young woman, and she runs into Lieutenant General Lord Robert Killian, who catches her sneaking around someone's office. Instead of stopping her, Killian, they call him by his last name, that's all you got. Killian decides to woo her to distract her, kind of because it's his duty and kind of just because Hannah intrigues him. As you can imagine, going on this quest to find the killer together allows them to be in proximity to one another. The thing that is most unique about this story to me is that Hannah is very open about the fact that she is sexually attracted to Killian, that she wants to explore that, as she intends to be an old maid. She's 4 and 20 at the time, and a lady's companion. She's not nobility. She's a bastard child of a lord, so not good standing in society. And she wants to pursue passion with the first person who's ever awakened it in her. Killian has a lot of hangups about that. He is attracted to Hannah. She is the first woman that he's felt this strongly for ever, but in a long time. But he has this pride about being a gentleman and doing the honorable thing by her, which she couldn't care less about. They work really well together. Hannah is a trained spy. She can fight, she can think, she knows multiple languages. She is an impressive woman, and going through this journey together, she impresses him. While Killian certainly wants to protect her from the more dangerous aspects of this job, he never stops her from pursuing her information the way that she needs to. There is pretty much just one fight scene where they have a pseudo meet cute. She beats up 4 dudes, and Killian's just standing back going, what just happened? I don't understand. I loved it. There was no damsel in distress. She never needed to be saved by him. She was always able to stand up for herself. There are a lot of also strong women in this. There is Lady Philippa, Hannah's patroness, who is connected to Queen Victoria and who organizes the spyness between them. In this story, Hannah also meets 2 other young ladies. The second book is going to be about one of those. I rarely find a deflowering scene to be inspiring. Oh, the burn, the pain, and suddenly it's magical. It always rubs me the wrong way. They do, before the deflowering, a lot of fooling around, if you will, and I found their discussions around that and the way that they played together very, very fun to watch, because Hannah's taking agency over her own sexuality and sexual experiences. She's not waiting until marriage. She doesn't expect a man to come and save her or propose to her afterwards. She wants to experience this thing, sex, and she wants to experience it with Killian, the person that she most desires. And that's what made it believable, even if I've never talked to someone whose losing of their virginity goes as well as it does in a romance novel. If you like historical romance where you break free from the patriarchal systems that really held women down in that history, is it historically accurate? Not at all. Do I personally care? Not at all. I enjoyed this one thoroughly.